What is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome to VeVe Investments. On today's episode, we are recapping David Yu's interview with WillGoesMeta and MisterV. So if you guys are interested, make sure to stay tuned. We discuss 11 points in this episode. So we just had another interview with David in the community, which was nice to see because he was not on the most recent community update call. It was a little over an hour and a half long, so for those who missed it, I tried my best to break it down for you. So like I said, we're talking about 11 points in today's episode. So with that being said, let's kick it off with point number 1. So the first thing that's worth noting from the call is they talked about the Asian market, and specifically China. So David does say that the purpose of these recent meetings that him and Dan have been traveling to has been to break into the Asian market. So by them having just signed an MOU with Alibaba, we know that potential partnerships like this will help them transition into markets like China, which in a similar way to Japan have a completely different culture over there. So David actually goes on to mention that there's one marketplace that does over $1 billion per day. My guess there is that's Alibaba e-commerce. But in addition to Japanese, French, and Spanish that just landed on the app recently, we now also have Mandarin. So we did mention in our last episode that local languages are required for some brands to be announced on the app. So this does open the potential for a lot more Chinese IP now. David says that the team needs to ensure proper AR functionality, as well as things like data storage and security, because all of these things are to comply with Chinese regulations, which are a completely different game over there. So again, working with a company like Alibaba can help ensure this compliance. And he also makes a comment about China's gaming industry. So he says that China's gaming industry is pretty much like no other, which proves an existing market and shows China's potential in the digital space. Monster Hunter, wink wink, nudge nudge. Now we talked about the team size in our last episode, but we got a little bit more information from David this time around. He says they've been building the digital marketing team. We should expect more content as a major part of this push, beginning Q4. They've hired a new marketer who actually starts this week, and they've actually been tasked with increasing the company's digital presence. And David and Dan, a little bit back in the day, were talking about phases to building a business, talking about, when you bring in HR managers and this and that. One of the phases that they had described was between 70 and 300 employees. And David does confirm that they're in this stage now and that they are hiring up to that 300 employee team size. Now, MisterV also asked David about a type of user on the platform that's been coined as a drive-by flipper. So these are users on the platform who are looking for liquidity from other users while neither reinvesting nor contributing to the app's overall ecosystem. So the overall question was pretty much, how do you deal with these types of people, right? And what it comes down to is just monitoring the data that comes in. So David says that if it's a good set that goes to the right holders, we should see no more than 7 to 15% in the secondary market. Anything above that would suggest that something's wrong. He actually used the exact example that if something has 1,500 additions and then you have 900 posted on the market, then of course that's going to be a red flag. But he does say that the team is carefully monitoring these numbers for each and every drop. So they're not just watching a drop and going, hey, do we sell out or not? David ensures that they're always looking for ways to improve. Now, they did also ask David about a loyalty program, talking about how there's a lack of utility right now. David says that the team is still learning from recent data they've collected to determine the best approach. They're also speaking with their licensors to create exclusive collectibles that you can only redeem with MCP points. So these will not be collectibles available on drops. He also said that they're updating the OUP so that MCP points play a part in the program, and I really liked hearing that. Now, there's a point in the interview where there's a suggestion from a community member talking about how if you're ranked as a master, you could automatically get on the allow list and then a snapshot would be taken. I actually really like David's response to this, and he used his retail shop over in New Zealand as an example. So David's shop is in the downtown core of the city, and he says that when a new company is dropping a collectible, he used Hasbro as an example, he says that they will evenly distribute those collectibles amongst a network of stores in the area. And according to David, this has always been the fairest way of doing things. So he talks about how it's important to incentivize users through points by providing them with exclusive items that they can only redeem and get with their points. So just because David's store is more popular than others in his area doesn't mean that he automatically gets more allocations from Hasbro, the same way a master collector shouldn't automatically get on the allow list. He made it clear that they have a focus of making sure that everyone has an equal opportunity. They then go on to talk about the quality of the collectibles on VeVe. And this confirms one of the points that I mentioned back in our episode about Game Brain Art, which is one of the studios who models the collectibles. They have used and worked with multiple different studios for different pieces on the platform. So he says that the original work for Electra was actually commissioned by a very popular studio located near Ukraine. The developers from that studio could not finish the piece, and it was actually sent to another studio for final touch-ups. So Electra, that specific collectible, didn't complete an end-to-end design process that was done by just one artist. He also talked about the Little Prince collectible that just dropped. He said that they made that a while back, and that the original work was actually scrapped because the studio didn't approve it. Now, when he says studio, I think he meant VeVe, unless the studio didn't approve the individual designer's work. But regardless, David does tease an amazing collectible that's going to be dropping soon, and he does mention that Wolverine's going to be coming in September, so I'm wondering if it's that one. Next up, we got a great question that was asked. What happens if you lose your phone and someone else gains access to your collection? If you're on your mobile phone, not everybody closes the app or logs out every time. So if you lose your phone or somebody actually takes it and then goes into the VeVe app and you're still logged in, what happens? Well, David says that the solution is to submit a support ticket to request an account freeze. So the same way that you call your credit card provider to lock your card, you're going to email the team and request the same thing. But David does say that he's going to recommend a lock feature to the development team. Which, David, if you're watching this, yes, please. I think that's a really important feature to have, because I think one thing that wasn't mentioned on this call is you said that, it is the same way that you contact a credit card provider to lock your card, but I can also go into my banking app and I can toggle on a lock feature for my credit card. Where is Rhys? He's been a little AKA lately. So David says that Rhys recently moved to Europe and the team's been letting him settle in. There's been a little bit of controversy when it comes to him and his OMI tokens, which I'm not really going to get into right now because I don't know enough about. But David mentions that he was the communications manager. I don't know if that was just a little fumble of words on his part, but in my opinion, this would explain a lot. I haven't really voiced it in the past because there hasn't been a video topic where it's appropriate. But for several months now, I've thought that this is a member of the team that really needs to step it up. But if he's not the communications manager anymore, that would explain things. If he's still in the position and he lacks the communication that he does with the community, then that's a whole other conversation for a different day. But other than that, David did seem to kind of, brush past him quite quickly. He says that when it's time for someone's contract to renew, they're actually re-interviewed by VeVe to determine if they're still, in his words, ticking off all the boxes. And that's something that I really liked hearing, because he does make a good point about how someone can work really well on a team with 70 people, but the atmosphere may be completely different for that person on a team with 300. Now, there was some questions raised in the community a few weeks back about what happened to the Ecomi YouTube channel. It seems that they've deleted all of their videos except for one. So when asked about it, David says that there's nothing to really be concerned about. He actually didn't even know the exact reason behind it. Whereas if there was a big reason behind it, he would probably know. My best guess is the functionality of the tokens changed quite a bit since those initial videos were put out. Not only would it be misinformation to still have them up, but it can also be a liability for the business. The other thing that I thought about is David was actually seen tweeting at a parody account of Elon Musk, funny enough, but he responded to a post from that account talking about how he's considering changing the name of one of his companies. Now, David does have a lot of companies, but if Ecomi is the one he's considering, that may also be a reason. I think it's less likely though, because he did say that he doesn't know the exact reason why. Now, when it comes to the OMI token, he was asked if he can give any updates. So, as everyone probably knows by now, there's a lot of regulatory barriers in the space just in general, because there's always things changing and being introduced on a legal level right now. One example he actually used was Apple. Apple doesn't allow companies to use digital currencies for digital products. So as a result of things like this, they are actually looking for more ways to implement the token in the VeVeverse to provide more utility in general, but also to provide a little bit more of a short-term solution for those who have been waiting for so long. And the last point we're going to touch on here, live events. So David does mention that they're going to be at 2 more events for this year. And then there is an eager fan base over in Europe that wants VeVe to visit. So he does mention that the team is working to travel to Europe for 2024. Ladies and gents, that's going to conclude today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. Those are going to be 11 points I took away from David's interview. Now, as for our next episode, I don't have it set in stone yet, but I do want to do a video pertaining to the VeVeverse, just considering more and more people are getting access now. So if you guys are interested in finding out what we discussed then, make sure to tune in on Thursday. But as for today's content, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in a future episode. And as for next, I'll catch you then.